In the past, people around R. Kelly painted him as not just dangerous, but downright monstrous.
And people have no idea that this man just beat me on the bus.
When my daughter came home, she was 98 pounds. When she left to be with him, she was 125.
I love my brother, you know, but he do have a problem.
I know the type of monster he is.
Now, he dropped a deeply disturbing video straight from prison, one that has ripped open old wounds and shaken his victims to the core. In this breakdown, I'll expose the clip in his current state. These might be R. Kelly's darkest recordings yet. R. Kelly, once crowned the so-called king of R&B, is now serving a brutal 31-year sentence inside Butner Medium 1, a federal facility in North Carolina, for heavy charges that include racketeering, trafficking, child mistreatment, and creating child material. But here's where things twist into something far more sinister, and why we need to rewind to how it all spiraled here. Because before these bone-chilling prison tapes, there were red flags that screamed what Kelly was truly capable of. Remember that explosive 2019 sit-down with Gayle King? That moment was pure chaos. Looking back now, it feels like a preview trailer for the mental collapse we're witnessing in his prison calls. In that CBS interview, Kelly was already unraveling, exposing cracks of psychological instability that now echo through every desperate phone call from behind his cell walls.
Oh my God, all of them. Got little girls trapped in the basement, helicopters over my house, trying to rescue someone that doesn't need rescuing because they're not in my house, handcuffing people, starving people. I have a harem, a cult. I don't even really know what a cult is, but I know I don't have one.
Kelly's desperation was impossible to miss. He was breaking under pressure, gripped by the same paranoia that now bleeds through his prison tapes. But things exploded the moment Gayle King pushed him hard on the allegations.
Everybody?
If you really look at that documentary, which I'm sure you have,
I have.
Everybody said something bad about me. Nobody said nothing good. They was describing Lucifer. I'm not Lucifer. I'm a man. I make mistakes, but I'm not a devil. And by no means am I a monster.
But when King began dropping the names of his accusers, Kelly completely snapped.
They are lying on me.
The most chilling moment came when King confronted him about the consistent stories shared by multiple women. Kelly's reaction exposed the same manipulative mindset that now drives his twisted prison strategy.
That defies logic to me.
Right. Until you hear the explanation. You can start a rumor on a guy like me or a celebrity just like that. All you have to do is push a button on your phone and say, so-and-so did this to me. R. Kelly did this to me.
But the darkest moment came when Kelly fully broke down, offering a disturbing preview of the fractured, psychological state we now hear in his prison recordings.
This is not me. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my career.
Robert.
30 years of my career. Y'all trying to kill me. You killing me, man. This is not about music. I'm trying to have a relationship with my kids, and I can't do it. Y'all just don't want to believe the truth.
That breakdown felt prophetic because the same fighting for my life energy is exactly what echoes through these 2025 prison tapes. When Kelly screamed at Gayle King, "I'm fighting for my life," he wasn't only talking about court battles. He was foreshadowing the raw terror now pulsing through his voice. Even more chilling was when Kelly admitted
I have been assassinated. I have been buried alive. But I'm alive.
But I'm alive. That buried alive line lands heavier now, because in his new tracks, Kelly claims people are trying to poison him and have him killed behind bars. It feels like he was already sensing the threat, mentally bracing for the crushing isolation and paranoia he's trapped in. And when Gayle pressed him about holding people against their will, he shot back with a chilling,
How stupid would never held for R. Kelly, with all I've been through in my way past, to hold somebody, let alone 4, 5, 6, 50, you said. Why, how stupid would I be to do that?
I didn't say you
That's
were holding.
stupid, guys.
I didn't.
Is this camera on me?
that "is this camera on me" moment was insane, because it proved Kelly always knew how to put on a show. The same type of calculated theatrics are now bleeding into those prison tapes, crafted to stir sympathy and maybe even tilt his case. Fast forward to 2025, and we're watching the exact same manipulation tactic. Only now it's supercharged by the desperation of a man who knows he's never walking free again. Throughout 2025, There's been a disturbing trend of Kelly allegedly recording music and leaking cryptic messages through prison phone calls. These clips are getting polished and spread online. But unlike the usual prison freestyles artists drop just to hold street credibility, these recordings are bone-chilling, loaded with themes of death, poison, and the belief that everyone is plotting to take him out. The wave really spiked in March 2025 when Kelly jumped on a viral challenge by remixing Chris Brown's Residuals over a prison line. Normally when rappers and singers jump into trends, it's about flexing and proving they still got it. But Kelly's take hit different, and not in a good way. What makes it even wilder is comparing Kelly's voice in these prison tracks to how he sounded in that Gayle King interview. In the CBS sit-down, you could hear the desperation boiling over, and in a separate HuffPost Live interview that went off the rails, Kelly exposed the same pattern of deflection and rage we now hear amplified to the extreme in his prison content.
Another thing, thank you.
If the next question is something negative out of your mouth, with all due respect, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
When the interviewer pressed him about his lyrics, Kelly instantly snapped into defense mode.
I would have to say this. I did not come here to get interrogated. I didn't come here for a deposition. You know what a deposition?
The pattern was crystal clear. Kelly could never handle being challenged, and he'd explode or twist the narrative to his advantage. That same volatile energy runs through these prison recordings. Only now it's drenched in real fear and crushing isolation.
This is a deposition. This is not about R. Kelly. This is not about music. This is not about someone who works hard on his music, who has an album out. This is about trying to interrogate me, and this is about, disrespect.
Now behind bars, that same victim mentality has warped into something far darker. Clips spread across TikTok and Instagram with Kelly spitting lines like, "Who's getting all my checks?" about his lost royalties. But it wasn't just the lyrics, it was that raw prison phone tone in his voice that had listeners split. Some found it heartbreaking, others called it terrifying, because you could literally hear fear and pain bleeding through every word. And that was only the beginning of what would spiral into one of the most disturbing release runs ever to leak out of a cell. By May 2025, a YouTube track titled "They Trying to Poison Me in Jail" surfaced, and it was nothing short of haunting. Pitched as a vulnerable ballad, Kelly claimed prison officials were trying to kill him with poison. As the months dragged on, these recordings got darker and more frantic. By June 2025, multiple tracks dropped with chilling titles like "They're Dosing Me to Death," "I'm Not Safe in Prison and I Heard the Guards Say Kill Him." These weren't just songs anymore, they sounded like SOS calls from a man convinced he was about to be erased. Kelly sang openly about fears of being murdered in prison, even with lyrics like, "I can smell death." From the 2019 interviews to these 2025 phone calls, you can trace the full slide into psychological collapse. Back in that tense sit-down with Gayle King, Kelly spoke about being buried alive and fighting for his life. Now locked inside federal walls, those words feel horrifyingly literal. The man who once dominated arenas is reduced to shaky phone calls from a cell, convinced everyone's plotting to end him. What makes these tracks especially disturbing isn't only their content, it's what they reveal about Kelly's unraveling mental state. The themes are relentlessly dark: death, poison, paranoia, and a real fear of assassination. Whether those threats are genuine or the product of a crumbling mind raises huge questions about prison reform and the treatment of high-profile inmates. And the timing wasn't random. These releases lined up perfectly with his legal team filing documents on June 10th, demanding early release and alleging a legitimate murder plot by prison staff. It's the same tactic we saw before trial, Kelly using media and public sympathy to pressure the system. But here's where it gets even wilder. Federal prisons are ruthless about contraband. Recording devices are strictly banned, which means these so-called videos are really just phone audios dressed up by outsiders with AI visuals or stock prison clips. It's basically an underground pipeline designed to smuggle Kelly's voice back to the public. The burning question is, are these recordings authentic or manufactured? At least one viral music video was exposed as pure AI fabrication, but others are undeniably real. In what sounds like a genuine call from March 2025, Kelly phoned into a podcast called Inmate Tea with AP. The line had that raw, unmistakable prison phone distortion as he performed his 1998 hit, "When a Woman's Fed Up." Hearing that today is downright eerie.
Standing here looking in the mirror, saying damn to myself. I should have known the day would come. She would find somebody else. And all the things I took her through, I shouldn't have lasted this long. Now I'm at this telephone booth, literally calling Tyrone.
The raw emotion is undeniable, but the context makes it cut deeper. A man who once sold out massive arenas is now reduced to singing through a prison phone for a small podcast audience. Compare that fragile voice to the defiant Kelly in those pre-trial interviews. In the HuffPost sit-down when he stormed off, he was still clinging to control and scraps of dignity.
I'm in New York, I'm having a great time. I'm finna go visit some friends, I'm finna do some more business. I'm finna have a great time. I didn't come here for you to spoil that.
That Kelly is gone. The man calling into podcasts from federal prison is broken, isolated, and visibly terrified. The bravado has crumbled into raw fear, and you can hear it in every recording. As 2025 progressed, the releases became increasingly desperate. The August drop, It's August and Still in Prison, again produced by Lil R3VA, was a mournful ballad about his endless incarceration. A stark reminder that despite all the appeals and emergency motions, Kelly remains trapped with little hope of freedom. Looking back, those 2019 interviews feel like warnings. When Kelly told Gayle King he felt buried alive, he was essentially predicting his own fate. His tearful "fighting for my life" moment now echoes as a foreshadowing of the real life or death struggle he believes he's facing inside federal prison. So, what does life actually look like for R. Kelly inside those walls? To understand why these recordings sound so disturbing, you have to grasp his day-to-day reality. The fall from global superstar to federal inmate is one of the most dramatic collapses in music history, and nowhere is this clearer than inside FCI Butner Medium I in North Carolina, where he's been housed since April 2023. The same facility once held figures like Bernie Madoff, transferred there after time in Chicago's MCC. This is likely his permanent home for decades. Federal records list a projected release date of December 21, 2045. With good behavior, he'd be 78 years old. Daily life is stripped down and harsh. As a convicted sex offender, Kelly is most likely kept in protective custody away from general population. That means 22 to 23 hours locked in a cell, minimal human contact, and at best an hour of isolated recreation. No church services, no education programs, no real community. At times, filings suggest he's placed in solitary for his safety, which prison experts describe as psychological torture. For someone whose career thrived on crowds and connection, the silence of a cell is devastating. The repeated transfers in and out of solitary show the threats aren't just paranoia. They're real security risks prison staff take seriously. The toll is obvious. Inmates like Kelly, labeled Skinners or Chomos in prison slang, sit at the very bottom of the inmate hierarchy, despised even below killers or drug lords. History proves the danger. Jeffrey Dahmer murdered in prison. Jared Fogle attacked in 2016. For Kelly, this constant threat explains the paranoia and fear bleeding through his songs. His attorneys claim he's been targeted by gangs like the Aryan Brotherhood and even by corrupt staff. And yet somehow, he's still creating music. Federal inmates don't get access to real studios, so monitored phone calls are the only tool. Every word is recorded and can be used against him. But Kelly reportedly claims he's written 25 albums since arriving. That irony is heavy. A man who once had unlimited studio access now reduced to grainy collect calls. His June 2025 track, I Heard the Guards Say Kill Him, even suggests threats from staff. The money adds another layer. His royalties are being garnished for restitution and debts, leaving little to cover legal fees or commissary basics. For a man who once lived lavishly, it's a crushing reality. Photos from February 2025 show Kelly looking older but composed in prison attire, though still images can't capture the damage of constant fear and isolation. June 2025 brought one of the darkest moments yet. Reports say Kelly was placed in solitary, over-medicated, and collapsed, ending up hospitalized in Durham for several days. His team called it a deliberate attempt on his life, pointing to staff negligence and alleging an organized plot. Prosecutors and officials stayed quiet, citing ongoing litigation. But the silence only deepened the sense of conspiracy. The isolation isn't just physical. His ex-wife Drea Kelly and children don't visit, leaving his only contacts as attorneys, guards, and monitored calls. Even his tablet privileges for communication come with restrictions and delays. For someone who once controlled every detail of his environment, this loss of autonomy is crushing. From the stage to the cell block, the story of Robert Sylvester Kelly is about more than one man's downfall. It's about how the justice system finally caught someone who long believed he was untouchable. His troubles trace back to the 90s, starting with a 1994 illegal marriage to 15-year-old Aaliyah. That annulled union set the tone for decades of accusations involving underage girls. In 1996, Tiffany Hawkins sued, claiming she was 15 when she began relations with Kelly at 24. Her lawsuit described coercion and group encounters with other minors. Settled for $250,000 in 1998, it highlighted a pattern of silencing accusers with money. Then came 2002, when a video surfaced showing Kelly with a 14-year-old. He faced charges, but in 2008 walked free after the girl refused to testify. The evidence was clear. Witnesses identified both parties. but the case collapsed under intimidation, shame, and financial pressure. That acquittal turned out to be a temporary escape. The same tape later became evidence in his 2022 Chicago conviction. By then, the Me Too movement and the 2019 docuseries Surviving R. Kelly had changed everything. More than 20 women told consistent, chilling stories of grooming, manipulation, and imprisonment. The documentary turned whispers into undeniable testimony, framing Kelly not as a celebrity with flaws, but as the architect of a predatory system. That shift opened the door for federal racketeering charges. Instead of isolated incidents, prosecutors built the case as a criminal enterprise. In 2019, Kelly was arrested on 10 counts in Illinois, followed by federal indictments in New York and Chicago. The New York trial in 2021 lasted 6 weeks with over 45 witnesses, including 11 accusers. Prosecutors portrayed him as the head of a RICO operation, using rules and manipulation to control victims, even forcing them to call him daddy. The testimony was devastating, and the verdict sealed it. The self-proclaimed king of R&B officially became federal inmate number 9888.
I text him, Daddy, I need to use the restroom. No,
Daddy.
it's fine. Yes, we were required to call him Daddy.
He also carried other unsettling demands.
I know you say he became extremely controlling.
Yes.
How so?
I had to wear sweatpants. I had to stand up when he would walk in a room. He would put a lot of his girlfriends on his phone plan so he can control like who you're talking to, how often you talk to your family, what you're texting, things like that.
Evidence brought forward to back these claims included shocking videos, binding contracts, and non-disclosure agreements, with a former employee testifying about bribing officials to secure the illegal marriage to Aaliyah. This wasn't just about isolated acts of mistreatment. It revealed a calculated machine built to identify, isolate, and exploit vulnerable young women and girls. On September 27, 2021, Kelly was convicted on all 9 counts, 1 racketeering charge and 8 Mann Act violations for transporting women across state lines for adult exploitation. The conviction marked a watershed moment, not only for Kelly, but for the justice system's ability to finally hold powerful figures accountable who once seemed untouchable. Yet the feds weren't finished. The Chicago federal trial in 2022 revisited charges many thought had ended with his 2008 acquittal. That second trial opened in August 2022, targeting child content and obstruction. He was convicted on 6 of 13 counts, 3 for producing child content and 3 for enticing minors. Though acquitted on 7 counts including conspiracy to obstruct justice, the guilty verdict stacked decades onto his time. On June 29, 2022, Judge Ann Donnelly sentenced Kelly to 30 years for the New York case, condemning his decades of abuse and complete lack of remorse. She stressed Kelly had shown zero accountability and remained a danger to society. Then on February 23, 2023, Judge Harry Linen Weber handed down another 20 years for the Chicago convictions, with 19 to run concurrently with the New York sentence, ultimately adding 1 more year to Kelly's prison term.
This is a significant outcome for all victims of R. Kelly, and especially for the survivors who so bravely testified.
Along with lifetime supervised release, heavy fines, and restitution to victims, the sentence ensured that R. Kelly would likely spend the rest of his life in federal custody. The appeals process was swift and decisive in upholding the convictions. In June 2023, the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the New York conviction. In April 2024, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals rejected the Chicago appeal arguments about statutes of limitations. Kelly's petition to the U.S. Supreme Court was denied in July 2025, exhausting his legal appeals and closing the door on any hope of overturning his convictions. What makes Kelly's downfall especially significant is how it reshaped the justice system's approach to celebrity crimes. The case spotlighted a surge in federal prosecutions using RICO and trafficking laws against stars driven by the Me Too movement and documentaries like Surviving R. Kelly. The success of these prosecutions emboldened prosecutors to pursue other high-profile figures, changing the landscape of celebrity accountability forever. The message was undeniable. Fame and money can't shield you from justice. The financial impact has been devastating. Kelly's royalties are being garnished for debts and restitution, with assets seized to cover more than $10 million awarded to victims. What was once a music empire worth millions has been dismantled to help those he harmed rebuild their lives. That empire, built on the backs of victims, is now being used to support them. In February 2025, another lawsuit sought enforcement of an unpaid $10.3 million judgment, proving that his legal battles won't end even behind bars. The victims aren't backing down. They're determined he pays every penny, and they're not taking no for an answer. The transformation from king of R&B to federal inmate Thagra 90888 represents more than the fall of one man. It marks a fundamental shift in how the justice system confronts powerful figures who weaponize their status to harm others. Kelly's case has become a template for prosecuting celebrity crimes, showing that wealth, fame, and cultural influence are no longer shields against accountability. The streets always sensed something was off about Kelly, but now the courts have confirmed what the community had been saying for years.